وما أرسلنا من قبلك إلا رجالا نوحي إليهم فاسألوا أهل الذكر إن كنتم لا تعلمون.
بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. أما بعد, from the more important or most important issues of fasting in the month of Ramadan that are very reoccurring and often problematic and difficult for many people is that of a pregnant woman and or a breastfeeding woman making up the missed days. Just last night, a question was asked. A friend of mine in Michigan, a close friend of mine in Michigan, can a woman who's breastfeeding fast? Can she fast? We know it's permissible for her to break her fast, but is it permissible for her to fast? With regards to her health, the amount of milk that's going to be given, the quality of the milk, etc. My wife has 3 Ramadan she missed. She has years that she missed, etc. Every single year, the question is often brought up with regards to a woman who's breastfeeding and or a woman who's pregnant. Does she have to fast? Is she allowed to fast? Does she have to make up the days? Does she have to feed poor people for every day? Is she allowed to feed non-Muslims? How much food does she have to give them? And the list goes on. There are many different issues in the fiqh, the Islamic fiqh, in which are reoccurring. And there's a great deal of khilaf on those issues. And if those issues are not properly understood, if they're not properly studied by the presenter of the information, let alone by the one who's receiving the information, there lies no doubt there are going to be people who want to feel hardship. It's too much, it's too hard, it's too difficult, it's too confusing. Everybody understand this? And oftentimes that difficulty is felt not because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put the difficulty on you, but the person presenting the information himself has not understood the issue properly. Because the person presenting the information himself has strayed away from the pure teachings of the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And there are issues, and when we say ease or difficulty, it has nothing to do with the rules, what you have to do and what you don't have to do. But many times when you study the application of certain things, or the rules themselves that aren't even proven, there's nothing in the Quran, there's nothing in the Sunnah that's authentic, forcing a slave of Allah to do this, or allowing a slave of Allah to leave that off, and then later on have the hardship of making it up, and the list goes on. So this is something that happens every single year. A woman becoming pregnant, a woman breastfeeding a child is a staple part of life. If it wasn't for this issue, none of us would be sitting here today. And I'm sure most of us were breastfed by our mothers sitting here today. Most, if not all. So the concept of women being in a large number, women being Muslims, being upon Islam, having children, breastfeeding children, it's a very important issue of Ramadan. Very important issue. And from the hikmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that when He speaks on Ramadan and its obligation, He speaks directly after that He speaks on what issue? He talks about what? He talks about fasting and its obligation. Then Allah, He directly talks about making what? La. Allah talks about the month of Ramadan, the Quran being sent down, it being mandatory to fast. فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْ. Those, Allah says, who are present fast. Then Allah says, Allah says, speaking on those who are ill or traveling. Look at the wisdom behind that. Allah directly spoke on missing Ramadan for a reason or for an excuse and what to do. فَعِدَّةٌ مِنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرَ. Make up those missed days later on. As if the verse is telling us that Allah knows everyone is not going to be able to fast the month of Ramadan in Ramadan. Allah knows this. So therefore, A, B, C, D, E, etc. Everybody understand this? So what we're trying to say in simple terms is that just as it is important to learn how to fast, what to do, when to fast, it is just as equally important to learn how to not fast and how to make up the missed fast. And the fiqh of making up those missed days. How, when, how, etc. Everybody understand this? It is equally as important because it's going to be something that's going to happen and take place. Everybody understand this? It's going what? It's going to take place. Everybody know this? Many Muslims today, they fight and they argue over sighting the moon. When should we look for the moon? Should we look for the moon? Or should we take the reports of the Muslims in other countries? But you don't find that same amount of importance or stress placed on Ramadan leaving. It is important learning when Ramadan comes in, learning when it goes out. And the same applies to looking for the moon in the other 11 months. Because if you don't keep track of the Hijri calendar, what's the point of keeping track on for 1 month? Everybody understand this? When is Sha'ban over? When does Ramadan begin? When is Ramadan over? When is Shawwal begin? Very important. Or the concept of the Salah. Some Muslims today, and this is not what we're going to talk about, we're trying to make a point with regards to looking for the moon. You have to look for the moon. It's haram to use the calendar, to use the calculation. Right, no problem. You say, why? They said because the Prophet says, "Sumu li ru'yatihi wa aftiru li ru'yatihi." Fast when you see it, and break your fast when you see it. Right. So what about the 5 daily prayers? What did the Prophet say with regards to Salat al-Dhuhr? Did he say, look at the prayer schedule? The prayer schedule is based off of what? Without a doubt. And he never told you to use the calculation. Waqt al-Dhuhr, he said the time of Dhuhr is when what happens? Talking about the shadow, a sundial, a stick in the ground. When the shadow is what? What's the time for Dhuhr prayer? Do you even know? When does Dhuhr come in? 12:15, 1:15, 1 p.m.?
Around it.
Then he said that the time of Asr is when what happens? He didn't mention anything about calculation. The time of Maghrib is what? When something natural happens, looking at the sky. Nothing to do with calculation. The time for Isha is pertaining to Fajr pertaining to the sight. Nothing to do with calculation. So, let's just make an example to show confusion. You cannot use the calculation. I'm not here to prove a point whether you can or cannot use the calendar. It's not getting into that. We're trying to prove a point of the confusion. It's haram to use the calendar for Ramadan, but it's permissible, rather obligatory, to use the calendar for the 5 daily prayers. Which one is more reoccurring? 5 Salah or Ramadan? What's more important in the deen? 5 Salah or Ramadan? Everybody understand this? Confusion. And therefore it leads to hardship and difficulty with regards to this calendar, with regards to the schedule, and other schools on. You can make 50 other examples like this. Contradictions based off of confusion and lack of clear perception of the Masail, let alone giving the general people the information. Everybody understand this? And then we have the concept of forcing the people upon views and opinions and getting them to do things that Allah and His Rasul did not, what? Command them to do. Everybody understand this? This is very important. So the things that you have to know, when Salat al-Dhuhr comes in and when it goes out. How do you make Salat properly? And what will nullify your Salat? Everybody understand this? How to make Ramadan and how to what? What's one? Ikhwan. Guys, if you sleep, we can close the book and eat, no problem. Which one? How to make up the missed days, because it's going to happen. Everybody understand this? For men, let alone women who are going to be breastfeeding and who are going to be what? Pregnant. So the moon, sighting of the moon, Shawwal, are the 3 Eves in New York City or 2 Eves, all of these things, these are what? Reoccurring issues. And if it's a reoccurring issue, then it's important for the Muslim to get as much knowledge as he possibly can. And it's vital for the student of knowledge and the imam of the masjid to constantly revive and renew his ilm. And every year to dig deeper, to search deeper, to get more certainty. And you shouldn't just have an issue, oh, I studied it, you know, so on and so forth. No, keep reading, keep searching, keep digging if you want more knowledge, if you want more certainty. Everybody understand this? So the concept of women breastfeeding, the concept of women making up those missed days because of pregnancy is very important. And in the years that I've been fasting, I cannot remember a Ramadan where the issue did not what? Didn't come up. Philadelphia, New York, Medina, Mecca, and the list goes on. So it's a very important issue. And inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the 4th of June, hopefully we'll get a chance to speak on some of these issues bi'idhnillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. The sample that we have today, or the selection, we'll just read the book. I mean, it's not necessarily important right now to mention who the author is for a few reasons. It says, Mas'ala, والحامل والمرضع والشيخ الكبير كلهم مخاطبون بالصوم فصوم رمضان فرض عليهم فإن خافت المرضع على المرضع قلة اللبن وضيعته لذلك ولم يكن له غيرها أو لم يقبل ثدي غيرها أو خافت الحامل على الجنين أو عجز الشيخ عن الصوم لكبره أفطروا ولا قضاء عليهم ولا إطعام فإن أفطروا لمرض بهم عارض فعليهم القضاء وأما قضاؤهم لمرض فلقول الله تعالى فمن كان منكم مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر وأما وجوب الفطر عليهما في الخوف على الجنين والرضيع فلقول الله تعالى قد خسر الذين قتلوا أولادهم سفها بغير علم وقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من لا يرحم لا يرحم فإذا رحمة الجنين والرضيع فرض ولا وصول إليك إلا بالفطر فالفطر فرض وإذ هو فرض فقد سقط عنهما الصوم وإذا سقط الصوم فإيجاب القضاء عليهما شرع الله أو شرع لم يأذن الله تعالى به ولم يوجب الله تعالى القضاء إلا على المريض والمسافر والحائض والنفساء ومتعمد القيد فقط ومن يتعدى حدود الله فقد ظلم نفسه وأما الشيخ الكبير وأما الشيخ الذي لا يطيق الصوم لكبره فالله تعالى يقول لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها فإذا لم يكن الصوم في وسعه فلم يكلفه وأما تكليفهم إطعاما فقد قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن دماءكم وأموالكم عليكم حرام فلا يجوز لأحد إيجاب غرامة لم يأتي بها نص ولا إجماع. The author of this book, he says, the issue of pregnancy, the issue of breastfeeding, the issue of an elderly Muslim, all of these people, those who are pregnant, those who are breastfeeding, those who are very old, they are required to fast. They are required to fast in the month of Ramadan, and it's mandatory upon them. Therefore, he says, when a pregnant woman is afraid that her milk will not be enough, nutrition, it won't be a good enough amount, or if a pregnant woman is afraid of her child, or the old person cannot fast because he's too old, he says then they are to break their fast. They have to make fitr. He says here, and there's nothing that they have to make up. They do not have to make up these days, nor do they have to feed food. Nor do they have to feed food. He says, as far as if one of them breaks their fast because of, he says, marad arid, a sickness that comes and it's going to go, that's a different story. And that's what? That's a what? That's a different story. Make up the days. Everybody understand this? Before we get into the other views, what the other ulama say, this and that, let's just understand this view. And it happens, it's very sad, in this masjid Taqwa, many other masjids, you find people very aggressive, very hostile, very hasty in speaking and rejecting something that they haven't heard of. You find a man who's not a student of knowledge, who hasn't studied, who doesn't devote himself to reading and studying. The moment he hears something that he heard of, what's this? You didn't translate it right. And so on and so on and so on and so forth. This is a ajab, wallah. You go into a doctor's office, you haven't studied medicine professionally, and you're quick and hasty to attack and snap at the one who does study medicine. That's not right. Because what you haven't heard of, perhaps it could fill an entire room full of books. And the books that this doctor or nurse has read and studied could perhaps fill a room full of books. So it doesn't make any sense for a Muslim to be hasty and criticizing and repudiating something that he, from his ignorance, hasn't read and hasn't heard of. Everybody understand this? Very important concept here. Everybody understand this? Let alone the fact that I may not agree with you, Sharif. I may not like you. I may not like the way you look. Honestly. But I may realize that you give me some type of beneficial information. And I may not agree. But the wise person is going to do what? He's going to take the fact that at least Sharif, yeah, that ugly guy, man. You know, he had glasses and a beard and he's from Guyana. He was giving a talk today in the masjid. I really don't like him, honestly. But at least he brought in my what? My scope. He gave me some more information I never even heard of. I don't agree with him in his weird view, but at least I did what? I learned something. The person who has the smallest mind, the most confined brain, is the one who isn't willing to listen, who isn't willing to learn, even though that person himself has not studied and does not study, but I'm hostile against information that you bring and you have studied. Let alone the fact that I'm not even willing to perhaps get a faida for him because I dislike him for one reason or another. I don't like him because he's from Guyana. I like Guyanese people. Nothing personal. It's what a person feels. Indians from Guyana, they don't know nothing. They don't know what they're talking about. I'm from America. Everybody understand this? This is a sickness among many Muslims, unfortunately. Everybody doing this? It is not the way of the Muslim, the layman Muslim, let alone someone who's trying to be a student of knowledge. He always keeps his mind open. And he's always searching, looking for the what? For the faida. No matter who brings it. As long as it's what? The faida. I just mentioned some narrations. And then hikmah to mu'min. Wisdom is the lost possession of the believer. Wherever he finds that wisdom, he does what? He takes that wisdom. Everybody understand this? Everybody clear on this? So the author of this book, his view is that these people are required to do what? They're required to fast. That's the first step. They're required to do what? Fast. And if they're afraid, if they can't, then he says in his view is that they don't have to what? Fast. And then after the month of Ramadan comes, he says that they do not have to make up the days, nor do they have to feed. And that sounds very weird and strange, right? Nah? It's very strange. When is this? I've never heard this before. I've been Muslim for 30 years, 40 years, fasting all these years. I've sat in the class, or the brother told me the other day, he says, I studied in Mecca for 30 years. He said so on and so on and so forth. I'm sure he studied for 30 years, maybe 35 years. I don't know that, Sheikh. I'm not responsible for his view and his opinion. I'm only responsible for the little knowledge that what? Who has? Muhammad ibn Yahya. And that's another mistake. Forcing someone upon something that someone else says. Alhamdulillah. Perhaps he studied for 30 years, and that's the amount of knowledge that he got, and that's his view and his opinion. It has nothing to do with what? My life, and what I've read, and what I've studied. Everybody understand this? If you bring a faida, I don't saw that. But if you force me to take a view because of some sheikh in Mecca that studied for 30 years, that's ghayr maqbool. That's not the deen of Islam. Everybody understand this? And the list goes on. So therefore the author, he says, if they become sick, then that's one thing. But pregnancy, breastfeeding, in old age that prevents a person from fasting, he says they do not have to make up any days, nor do they have to feed. Now just be patient, inshallah. Just be a little patient with this. He says, وَأَمَّا قَضَاؤُهُمْ لِمَرَضٍ. He says, as for the opinion or the view that we gave you, saying that they have to make up the days for a temporary sickness, then the dalil is what Allah says in the Quran, فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضًا. Those who are ill, whoever, then they have to make up days later on. He says, as far as it being obligatory upon them to break their fast. To break their fast, he says, then the woman who's afraid for her child, and the woman who's afraid for the baby that she's breastfeeding, Allah says in the Quran, chapter 6, Surah Al-An'am, قَدْ خَسِرَ الَّذِينَ. Allah says, those who kill their children, سَفَهًا بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ, foolishly, without no knowledge, they are losers. Those who kill their children without proper knowledge. In other words, talking about the mushrikun, who killed their children because they were afraid of poverty, because they were afraid of what? Their daughters becoming concubines, being captured in battle, being disgraced, being humiliated, being shamed. Allah says those who kill their children foolishly are losers in this life and also in hereafter. So he's using this verse to prove that it's haram for a person to irresponsibly deal with a child. To irresponsibly deal with a what? Child. To kill the child. Whether it is through lack of nutrition, not feeding. Everybody understand this? Everybody clear on this? And if you look at this verse right here is very strong. Because Allah is condemning the individuals that kill their children without the proper ilm. So you have to fast. You can't break your fast. A person is misinformed. He doesn't have what? Proper ilm. And it's going to lead to the sickness and the injury of the child. He then says, the Messenger of Allah said, those who are merciful will not receive mercy. Those who are not merciful will not receive mercy. He then says, so therefore having mercy upon the fetus and having mercy upon the child that's suckling is fard. It's mandatory. It must be done. And the only way that they can have mercy upon them is by breaking the fast. Everybody understand this? He then says, so therefore it's mandatory for them to break their fast. This author, he has the view, the opinion, that it is haram for the breastfeeding woman to do what? Fast. It's not optional. And he also has the view that it's haram for a pregnant woman to fast. It's not optional. Everybody understand this? What did the other ulama say? The Sheikh in Mecca who studied for 30 years? That has nothing to do with what? Everybody clear on that? He then says, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, so now therefore, if it's fard, then that means they can't what? They can't do the opposite, which is to fast. He then says, and if they're not fasting, and if they're exempt from fasting, then forcing them to make up the days is what?
It's not merciful.
Nah, he's talking about later on after Ramadan. Forcing them to make up the days is what?
Not allowed to.
It's not.
Think about it.
It's not good.
If he's proving that it's mandatory for them to break their fast, whether you agree or not, he says that it's what? Mandatory. So therefore, if they are not allowed to fast, now requiring them to make up their fast is a what? What is that now?
A hardship.
Not necessarily a hardship. What is that called? What is that? What's that concept? Get up, Yusuf, and make 2 rakah right now. Get up. Go make wudu. You kept your wudu from Fajr, but now I'm telling you to make a new wudu. What did I just do?
You commanded me.
With what? I gave what? It's legislation.
No.
That's what? It's legislation. Shut up. I'm telling them that it's mandatory to do what? Pray. And mandatory to make a new wudu. Can I do that just from my pocket? My back pocket maybe? Why? It's Allah's deen. In other words, I'm not allowed to just make up a rule in Islam. Unless there's what? Dalil. Stating that he has to get up, he has to make a new wudu, and he has to make 2 rakah right now. So he's saying is that, according to him, if that Allah and His Rasul didn't made it mandatory for them to break their fast, telling them that they have to make up the fast is now what? That's shara. It's legislation. It's deen. That's a ruling. And he's saying, where are you getting this what? from? Where does it say that they have to do this? Everybody understand the point?
No.
Everybody clear on this? He says, where are you getting this from? Now, I know what's in your minds right now, and this is, I'm not expressing my view or my opinion, but I know people's minds is, well, obviously, if you miss Ramadan, then you have to do what?
Make it up.
Make it up. Tell it. Where do you get that from? The law says make it up. الآية التي قلنا فمن كان منكم مريضا, those who are ill. So, is a pregnant woman ill?
Yeah.
Is a breastfeeding woman ill?
No.
Yes or no?
No.
Cup full, no dollars, overflowing. Everybody understand the point here? He's saying that someone who missed the fast, they have to do what? Make up the fast. Based off of what though? Dalil. So he's saying, where is the dalil that specifies that a pregnant woman or breastfeeding woman or old Muslim has to make up those? If we don't have that, then it goes back to the asl that they don't have to fast. Everybody understand this point? Moving on. The author of this book, Eden, says, it is a shara that Allah, the Exalted, has not allowed. Allah has not given the command to do that. Not the qada. The qada is only for the marid, the ill person, and also the traveler, and the ha'id, the mincing woman, and a woman who has postnatal bleeding, and those who intentionally vomit. These people here, they have to what? Make up their fast. In other words, he's saying, his view is that there is dalil stating that the mincing woman has to do what? Make up the fast. He's saying that there's dalil that the traveling person has to make up the fast. He's saying there's dalil that the sick person has to make up the fast. And if that wasn't the case, then they wouldn't have to fast. They wouldn't have to what? They don't have to fast, but they have to make it up. Make it up based off of what? Based off of dalil, shara, legislation. And he says those who don't fall under this legislation, how can we say that they have to? No.
Make it up.
Or, everybody understand this? The author, rahimahullah ta'ala, he then says, وَأَمَّا الشَّيْخُ الَّذِي لَا يُطِيقُ الصَّوْمَ لِكِبْرِهِ فَاللَّهُ تَعَالَى يَقُولُ. He says, as far as an old Muslim, an elderly Muslim, who can't fast because he's too old, then the law says, لَا يُكَلِّفُ اللَّهُ نَفْسًا إِلَّا وُسْعَهَا. Allah does not put on a soul more than they can bear. So this is his proof here that the old Muslim doesn't have to fast, period. It's not upon him at all. Feeding, making it up, Allah says, Allah does not put on a soul more than they can bear. And this person can bear fasting or not bear fasting? Can't bear fasting. He then says, so therefore, fasting that he cannot do, he cannot perform, is not from the things that Allah has made him liable for. He then says, as far as saying that the old Muslim has to feed, has to give food for each missed day, then the Messenger of Allah said, indeed your blood, your wealth is unlawful to each other. He says, so therefore it's haram for a person to make it mandatory for someone to pay something and to give something that's not mentioned where? In Kitab or Sunnah, or at least what the Muslims agreed upon, without a doubt. And if they differ, then it's going to go back to the Ijtihad. So he says, it's nothing in Kitab, it's nothing in Sunnah, it's nothing in Ijma'. First of all, it's saying that he has to fast, let alone saying that he has to do what? Feed. And the asl of a Muslim's wealth is what?
That's right.
Which one? Sacred or forbidden? Based off of what he just said. On hadithdisciple, says your blood is what? Huh? Sacred. Your food or your wealth, your amwal, no doubt food is from wealth, is what? Sacred. In other words, getting a Muslim to pay tax, getting a Muslim to pay a bill, getting a Muslim to pay a ticket has to be something that's based off of. And if it isn't, then it goes back to what's in your pocket is sacred to me, unlawful. Khayr, inshallah, moving on. The author, he didn't say, rahimahullah. We'll leave out his name for now. وروينا عن إبراهيم أن علقمة جاءت امرأة فقالت له إني حبلى وأنا أطيق الصوم وزوجي يأمرني أن أفطر فقال لها علقمة أطيعي ربك وأعصي زوجك. He says here, Ibrahim narrated from Alqama that one day a woman came to him. She said, I'm pregnant and I have the ability to fast, but my husband tells me to break my fast. He said to her, obey your Lord and disobey your husband. And disobey what? Disobey your husband. He then says, وَمِمَّنْ أَسْقَطَ عَنْهَا الْقَضَاء روينا عن حماد بن سلمة عن أيوب السختياني وعبيد الله بن عمر كلاهما عن نافع عن امرأة من قريش سألت ابن عمر وهي حبلى فقال لها أفطري وأطعمي كل يوم مسكينا ولا تقضي. He then says here, giving a narration from some of the people of the past, as we just gave the previous narration, with regards to fasting, haram or not, making up the days, mandatory or not, feeding, mandatory or not. He gives several different narrations from the Sahaba. He says here, فَلَمْ يَتَّفِقُوا عَلَى إِيجَابِ الْقَضَاءِ وَلَا عَلَى إِيجَابِ الْإِطْعَامِ فَلَا يَجِبُ شَيْءٌ مِّن ذَلِكَ إِذْ لَا نَصَّ فِيهِ أو إِذْ لَا نَصَّ فِي وُجُوبِهِ وَلَا إِجْمَاعٍ. He says here, after he mentions a few of these narrations from Ibn Abbas, from Ibn Umar, for it or against it. Those who say they have to at least eat. Those who say that they have to make up. And then later on he's going to quote how some of the ulama say that a pregnant woman or breastfeeding woman, they must make up the days and feed. And some of them say if a woman is afraid for herself, then that's one ruling. And if she's afraid for the child, then that's another ruling. Ins and outs and different details that don't have no dalil to support them directly. He says, so therefore they have not agreed upon it being obligatory to make up the days, nor have they agreed upon for it being obligatory to feed. He says, so therefore, and the reason behind this is, he says, so therefore, فَلَا يَجِبُ شَيْءٌ مِّن ذَلِكَ. None of this is mandatory. Why? Because there's no text, and there's no ijma'. He says there's no dalil from Kitab and Sunnah, and then there's no what? There's no ijma'. And it says, وَعَهِدْنَا بِهِمْ يَقُولُونَ فِي قَوْلِ صَاحِبِ إِذَا وَافَقَهُمْ مِثْلُ هَذَا لَا يُقَالُ بِالرَّأْيِ فَهَلَا قَالُوا هَا هُنَا فِي قَوْلِ ابْنِ عُمَرَ فِي إِسْقَاطِ الْقَضَاءِ. And then he brings out a contradiction, and this is very important as well. Those who say that you have to do this, or you can't do that, or you're allowed to do this because a companion did it, or a companion said it. And you can't go against the statement of a companion as long as no one else went against him, so on and so on and so on and so forth. He says that we realize that these people, they say this all the time. He says, so why don't they take the opinion of Ibn Umar when he said that there's no qada? In other words, one of the biggest problems with the different madhabs and madhabi people is that when it's convenient for them to take the view of a companion, they take it and they hold fast to it. And when it isn't convenient for them to take a view of a companion, they totally disregard it and throw it out, saying it's just a companion. And we go with the Sunnah, the Prophet didn't say that, the Prophet didn't legislate that. Or there's an issue in which there's no hadith, it says we're not forced to follow the views of the what? Of the companions. But when it's convenient for them, they say it's permissible to do this 2 days before, 3 days after, you can do this because Ibn Umar did it. Because Ibn Abbas did it. So when are you going to take it and when are you not going to take it? Everybody understand this? And this is one of the reasons why this author and many other of the ulama who held these views to follow what is clear, what makes the most sense, why they had a lot of people that hated them and disliked them. Because they exposed a lot of the contradictions and they exposed a lot of the bigotry and fanaticism of those madhabi people. Like what is what? When is what? When do I have to? When I don't have to? Everybody understand this? Why are you forcing the slaves of Allah to do something Allah and His Messenger didn't? Etc. And there is no doubt someone who's going to try to uncover and unveil contradiction, hypocrisy, is going to make many enemies in life. On any aspect and any level. In the deen, in the dunya, fiqh, hadith. When it's something that's inconsistent, something that doesn't make sense, a person is going to do what? And he tries to expose that, he's going to make many, many enemies. Many enemies. Because people just don't like that. They don't like people that don't know how to bite their tongue. Why are you talking about that? Shut up. You can't say that. Why not? Limada. As I asked the brother last time, actually tough. He said, you can't sit like that in the salah. I said, why not? He stuttered for like 3 or 4 or 5 seconds. And then he said, because you can't. He said, because your feet have to be like this, yani. That's what he did. He didn't say, Qala Rasulullah, Hadith, Bukhari, Wallahi. He said, you can't because your feet have to be like this. So he said, that's khata. He said, that's a mistake. So I asked him, I said, it's a mistake, or is it something best to sit how you illustrated with your hands? Which one? Mistake or best? He stuttered again. The brother was from Sudan. He stuttered again. He said, it's not a khata, it's not a mistake, but it's best. He said, so you can't sit like that. I said, is mukhil bis salah? Is messing up my salah or not? Breaking my salah? He says, nah, it's breaking your salah, it's messing your salah up. So I said again, I said, are you sure? I said to him, laughing, I said, Sheikh, yeah, what you said is very serious, what you just said. Relax, take it, drink a Dr. Pepper or something, man. Take 5 minutes, chill. He said, nah. I said, are you sure about that? Then he stopped, scratched his head, and he said, Tay. It doesn't mess up the salah, but it's best to do it. So I said, Jazakallah khairan. One of the brothers that was sitting next to him, brothers from West Africa, he was looking at him like, listen, just stop. Before you're quit while you're ahead, inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the list goes on. So therefore, I'm not going to hold you guys up too long today. It's about maybe 3 or 4 different pages we can read from this issue. Very long, extensive argument according to the author and his view. This is not the view of all of the ulama, that they don't have to make up the days, they don't have to feed, but it's something that is from the ulama of the past who took this view. The point is, expand your what? Your mind. Never restrict yourself to one style. Be willing to accept the faida, and most importantly, keep the cup what? Empty. I'm sure there's a few people maybe here today that may have upset or angered. Wallahu alam. That's good though. When somebody's upset and mad, that means I've done my job. Well, alhamdulillah, rabbil alameen. Hopefully we'll have time later on, bi'idhnillah, to explain this issue in more detail. Bi'idhnillah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wallahu alam. No questions about breastfeeding or pregnant?
Sheikh, can I ask one question? Concerning the old people, they have to have an age of not fasting, or as long as you're old, but there's an age for it or not?
There's no specific age. There is no limit in the Quran or any hadith that I've ever heard of or any of the ulama explain. I'm not saying there isn't. I haven't come across. Or any ijma' consensus that I've come across that states an age.
Okay.
But they say a person who's very old, and that goes back to your own discretion. You have to fast, Sheikh. We saw you yesterday in the park walking.
I work in
The belt on the back buckle. Yeah, you're strong.
Yeah,
Alhamdulillah. You're too strong.
It doesn't really have to have an age. It depends on how you feel in like 70, 80 and something.
Tight, inshallah. Tight.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Who's the author?
We're not getting that right now.
Is that written about?
La.
Within you?